Okay, fine. Let's start by what we have done yesterday. We've actually talked about Windows versus Unix. Then we tried to refer it to Linux, right? So let's try to recollect those key points that we talked yesterday, especially Windows versus Unix thing. Anybody? Can you recollect the 2 points, Windows versus Unix? Single versus multiple. That's the first important thing. A second point, even though it's not a defense, it's a general misinformation. GUI versus CLI, graphical user interface versus CLI. This is the second point we talked about yesterday, right? So this one. So GUI and CLI, which one is not available in Windows? Both are available, right? That was a trick question. So that was a question we usually ask in an interview kind of. Now, let's say I ask you, what kind of animal is a human being? Or let me put it much more. What kind of dog is a human being? 3 options I give. Let's say you are a Doberman, Alsatian, Pomeranian. What's the answer? One of them or none of the above? None of the above. So that's a general trick question that you normally get on Windows versus Linux also. It's more like a fun question. So GUI is graphical user interface. Basically the Windows normally that we see. CLI is command line interface. Now let's come back and see if we apply these same 2 things to Java programming, what kind of interface usually Java programs run on? A GUI or a CLI? Guess it. So we're talking Java being GUI versus CLI. Let me take it here. Java, GUI or CLI? Both? How both? Or why is it both? Can you run a Java program using GUI? Can we do that? We can, right? You can actually create all the interface using Java. They're usually called thick clients. You install them on your local system. So GUI is there in Java. What about CLI? How do we run a Java program at command line? We can run using Java command like this. Let's say we open the command line. Can we run like this? Java, blah, 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 Java, blah, 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 blah. We have -X options, -D options. If you don't know about this thing, don't worry. But this is how a usual Java program runs if you are doing it from command line. So Java can be done using both CLI and GUI. Which is more popular and more easier, CLI or GUI for Java? CLI, isn't it? which means you guys are more comfortable with Linux than Windows. If you are a Java programmer. Yes? No? Makes little sense? Which means you're already doing what we are trying to do here. You are already comfortable with command line interface. All your Java programs mostly run on CLI. That's the reason Java is popular. That's the reason whole full stack is extremely popular, because it can be run very easily on a CLI on a Linux system. Then what is Eclipse then? So you have Eclipse, then you have a CLI server. So normally what you do is, if this is your Windows thing here, you have Eclipse IDE, all right? This is where you create your Java program, all right? Once you create it, then you create a jar file. The jar file goes to a Linux server. This is your Linux server. And on the Linux server, you usually have a Tomcat server. On the Tomcat server, you're putting this jar file. So the jar file comes here, right? And this Linux server will have some IP, let's say 10.10.10.10. Then a user is sitting somewhere else with the user's laptop. A user will access this IP, which goes to your Tomcat server, which takes it to your Java program. That's a very common flow of how the application that you have developed here on your laptop goes to a Linux server, which you have created and deployed to, will be accessed by an end user. Right? Makes sense? Now, this flow is very common. Every programming language almost follows the same flow. A developer develops everything on a Windows laptop using a nice IDE like Eclipse, creates a jar file, puts it onto a nice Tomcat server, which is running on a Linux server. This Linux server will be accessed by an external user, somebody sitting in some other place, using the IP address. Then the Linux server sends the request to Tomcat server, which gives a page in your jar. Very common flow. Now this, you keep repeating every day. You create new code, push it. You create new code, push it. You create new code, push it. All through the day, this is what you are doing. All right? Any questions so far? This architecture that we are referring to, we will come back to this thing again when we are talking AWS, when we are talking DevOps. This architecture remains same. This is like your tables. 2 multiplied by 2 is always 4. It doesn't change. Whatever you do, you are in first standard, it's same. 10th standard, same. You go to PhD, same, remains same. So this architecture that we are talking about is always same. Laptop, Linux server, external user. All right. So your Java thing, coming back to GUI versus CLI, it's popular because you're already working on CLI. So don't be scared just because Linux is command line. You have the skill to work on the command line already. The only thing is probably you don't know about it. You have it. Already you are doing it. The Windows part is pretty easy. We are doing it right from our childhood. It's always there, the window that you are looking at. So here, the other 2 points, single user versus multi-user and GUI versus CLI. Let's look at some other points. Apart from these two, there are some other points that will make Windows versus Unix a better debate. So we're going to put those points for today's discussion here. So Windows versus, on this side, let's put Linux. Now let's talk about other differences. So this is Windows. On the right side, Unix. Couple of other differences, let's see. Let's look at automation. This is a very important. How automation is different in Windows versus Unix. Before we go in here, let's see what automation is. Any guesses on what is automation? Let me make it easy. What is the opposite word for automation in English? Opposite word for automation. Anybody?
Manual.
Manual, correct. Manual. Any other things? Man-made, okay. That's good. Man-made. Automation, man-made, okay. God-made. Automation versus manual, correct. That's correct. So when we are talking about automation, we'll have to first understand what is manual. Let's take a common example. Forget about computers and automation. Regular work. The most common thing of manual versus automation is your daily walk. Let's say you're walking every day from your place to your class or your college or your office. That is manual, done by human being. That's the reason the word man in that. Done by human to most of the part. Now, if you have to automate it, what would be your choices or what would you do? So you are trying to automate the walking part. You don't want to walk every day. What would you do? Go ahead. Guess it. In other words, let's say I am extremely lazy. I don't want to walk. Buy a bike. Make sense? Or at least a cycle, bicycle. I don't want to walk. I don't want to do the manual work. Until now, I'm walking. That is manual. Now, if I have to automate it, the simplest way to do it is buy a bike. Introduce a machine into the process. Now, this is the most common way to automate. You introduce a machine into your work. Very common. So if somebody asks you, how do you automate XXX? You can blindly say, buy a machine. Don't worry what kind of machine that is. There will be some machine. If it is not there, we'll set up a machine. Can that machine be a Java program? Can it be? Is it possible? Can we use a program to automate something? We will see that in a moment. For now, let's try to understand the moment we talk automation, we will have to understand how it's done manually first. If you don't know something that is done manually, you don't know what to automate. For example, let's say I'm trying to draw a picture here or trying to open. Let me take this, a very simple automation. Let's stop this. I have one folder here. Then I have another folder. Let me open another folder. So I have two folders here. All right. Let's give some names to these folders. Let's give some names. So I'm saying this is folder 1. I'm opening the same thing here. Creating another folder. So on the left side, I have folder 1. This is really slow. On the right side, I have folder 2. All right, you can see it here. You can see it here. This is folder 1. And on the right side, we have folder 2. All right. Now let's say I have file 1 here on the left side. Let's create a notepad. File 1 of folder 1. All right. Now I want to copy this to this. So I'm copying a file from folder 1 to folder 2. Am I doing this automatically or manually? Is this automated or manual? Manual. Because I'm doing, as a human being, I'm trying to copy from left side, paste it to the right side. All right, let's say there is another file. I'm creating another file. Understand the process here. So I'm doing a create first, file 2, copying it. All right. Going to folder 2 on the right side, pasting it here. All right. Let's do another thing. So create file 3, copy, move to the other side, paste, create. This is all manual I am doing. Create, copy, move to the other side, folder 2, paste. Right. Now everything I have done now is manual in nature. But the process is repetitive, you see. Remember the word repetition. This is a very important part of automation. Repetitive means anything that gets repeated, a pattern or a series of steps. So in this case, what I did is create, copy, move, paste. So on folder 1, create and copy 2 steps. Then I am moving to folder 2, paste it. Those are the 3 steps I'm repeating. Let's write them down. I'm writing only the manual process. We are not even talking about automation now. So folder 1, let's write the steps. Go to folder 1, manual steps. These are all. Create file, copy file, go to folder 2, paste file. That's it. These are the steps we've been doing. File. How many steps we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The same steps we are repeating again and again. Yes or no? Now, if this I have to do it for, let's say, 1,000 files, how long will it take? 1,000 files we are talking. Just now we did for 3 files, manual. It took me about 10 seconds, and then my wrist is already paining. If I have to do it for 1,000 files today, how long you think it will take? 1, 2 hours? Are you interested in doing it in the first place? It's a very boring work. And when you are doing a boring work, you'll make mistakes. Like mathematics. That's why we never get good marks. Yes, sir. Any subject we did not get marks are now good subjects. Maths, physics, organic chemistry, Laplace transforms in your engineering, material science. These are some of the most boring subjects we studied, right? Why we could not study them well? Because they are boring. Yes or no? True. So here, if you see, this repetition is basically boring and which has some other problems. First thing, waste of time. Second thing, boring. Third thing, it's called error possibility high. Because it's boring, you tend to lose interest after a few clicks. Or you get overconfident. This is very easy, I can do it. That's easy. There's nothing really complicated about copying a file and pasting somewhere. But the problem is, because it's so boring, you lose some sight or you're thinking about something else, you make a mistake. So if these 3 are the problems, is there any way we can get rid of this thing? Can we save money, some time, or can you save some boredom? Can you reduce the errors? These are very important things. Which means anything manual and repetitive, we should avoid it. If it is not repetitive, should we avoid it? Let's say it's only one time. Should we avoid it? It's only one time, because by the time you learn how to manually do it, the task is already done. Only one time, no repetition. So for automation to happen, or to even think of automating something, there should with two things that should exist. So know, first thing is, know how to do it manually. Second thing, it should be repetitive. These are the two important ingredients to automate anything. Take the first example we were talking. You are trying to reach a place, but you don't want to walk. If you are going there only once, there is no need to automate. First go there once, then if you are going there every day, and if you got bored of doing it manually, then you think of buying a bike. If you enjoyed going there manually, you don't want to buy a bike. So these two are key ingredients to automation. And automation, the purpose of automation is to basically reduce these things. So we are talking about what is automation and when you will try to do automation. Now come back to our original discussion. This whole discussion is about Windows being able to do things manually versus automatically. And the task that we are talking right now, just let me. Right. This is the task we've been talking. So we talked about a task which is done manually initially. And then we realized this task has all the three ingredients that we talked about. What are those three ingredients? It's a waste of time, lot of time, especially if you are trying to do it for a large number of files. It gets boring after some time, and that leads to errors. We want to avoid these three things. Now that you want to avoid these three things, even on Windows, now you started thinking, is there a way that my machine can do it? You remember what is automation? General, introduce a machine into the process. Anywhere. The moment we say automation, we are basically saying introduce a machine. So here, if you have to automate it, you're introducing a Windows laptop here. These tasks, you have done it so far on a Windows laptop manually. Now you want the Windows laptop to do it for you. Is there any way to do it? This is all Windows. You are extremely familiar with this interface. You've been using it for all types of activities. You draw diagrams on it. You started watching with movies, I think. So all of us do the same thing. So you watched movies on this. You created all your project reports on this. You draw your diagrams on this. You made changes to the photos. You played a lot of games on it. You're an expert on this Windows laptop. You're really an expert. You can install any software. You can crack open any software. Some of you probably did cryptocurrency mining also on these rigs. Now tell me if there is a way I can copy these three files from this directory into this directory automatic. I don't want to do that manual copy paste.
We can write a bash script.
Any ideas? Hire a freelancer. First idea. Can we hire somebody to do this for us? Is that automation? No. Somebody says write a bash script. No, we are in Windows. We can't write bash scripts in Windows. Bash scripts are in Linux. We will talk about it in a moment. So right now the question is there any way to make this manual work be done by my laptop? So I'm trying to use the word, introduce that word, automation here. Can I automate this process of copying from folder 1 to folder 2 on my Windows laptop? There are possibilities, there are ways, but they're not really that good. Now, compared to this, a Linux server or a Unix server, like one is I've seen yesterday. Let me log in that again. This is the mobile XTerm we have seen yesterday. I'm trying to log into one of our Unix servers. If we are on a command line, I can simply run a couple of commands here, copy command, and then create a for loop, which does the work for me. Now, obviously, you can do this in Java also, but Java by default is not available on Windows. Whereas this for loop that I'm talking is available by default on Unix. So what we're essentially saying here is automation, these kind of repetitive activities, it's difficult to do in Windows. Remember one thing, not impossible. It's difficult in Windows. Is it possible? Yes. It's possible with a programming language or a tool called PowerShell. This was introduced recently, a couple of versions before, about 5 years before the PowerShell was introduced. This is similar to what you are seeing here on Unix. Means you can write programs on Windows and you can run it here. But again, Windows users are mostly GUI-based users. Nobody uses Windows to write programs unless you are a Java developer or a .NET developer. A regular user of Windows is not a program. Your father, my father, they are not programs. They are regular users. All government employees who go to office every day, they are not programmers. They can't do anything on this laptop except open an Excel sheet or open a Word document and make modifications or access their Gmail and send a Gmail. That's all. So Windows user is not really that tech savvy. That's why Windows never really tried to make this PowerShell more powerful. So even though there is a possibility, the Windows programming is not very popular or not easy. So Windows automation is kind of almost zero, nothing. Now the same things, like some of you are saying, can be done easily on a Unix environment. When we reach bash scripting, we will understand that. But right now, the difference that we are seeing here is automation in Windows is possible but difficult. You can write a what is called a PowerShell script here. Let me write it here. So you can use PowerShell scripting. Whereas on Unix, the same manual task can be done in an automated way. Only these two things are changing here. It is possible, but it's easy here. Here, it's extremely easy. So that's the difference. This is the third difference. The first one was single user versus multiple users. The second was, what was the second one? GUI versus CLI. Both are available in both operating systems. And the third and the most probably useful difference is automation. Difficult versus easy. It's like again, GUI like CLI on. Is it available? Yeah, it's available both. But how easily can you use it on Windows versus Unix? So you can do automation extremely easily if you are on a Unix environment. And it becomes difficult if you are on a Windows environment. And let's look at the tools for automation. On a Windows environment, the automation tool is PowerShell. And on Unix, the automation tool is Bash shell. And this is the scripting that we have in our syllabus, Bash scripting. We will see what is Bash at a later point of time. The full form for Bash. But right now, we're looking at automation. Automation can be done in both ways. On Windows, you do it using PowerShell. And on Unix, you do it using Bash shell. PowerShell is difficult, Bash shell is easy. The Bash shell scripting, why is it easy? Let me tell you that. It follows most of the programming languages. If you are starting with C, C++, Java, .NET, Python. Next thing, anything, Node, Rust, Go, anything. Which one? Ruby, yeah. Ruby, yeah. Any of these programming languages, if you know one of them, you know Bash, which means most of you already know Bash. You already know Bash. Can you tell me a for loop? You can tell me a for loop, right? Let's write a Bash script, quick for loop. Let's say you are on a Bash shell. This is a Bash shell for I in 1, 2, 10, do print or echo simply I. Right? Done. That's a for loop, right? Make sense? In Java also? Almost? You understand the generic structure of a for loop? C, C++, any of these things, the for loop is same. You first return the range, and then you're telling what to do. That's it. Let's run it. Only 3 times it came. For I in 1, 2, 10, or let's say, make it simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is wrong syntax. 1 to 10. Do echo hi, done. Yeah. Oh, we're not echoing I. For I in 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do echo dollar I, done. Right? That's it. You know, for loop in one programming language is pretty much same. But if you know it in too many programming languages, you will have the same problem that I had just now, whether to use a space here or a comma. In some other programming languages, you can use comma. So that's fine. You can sort it out quickly, like we did just now. So here, learning bash scripting is really easy if you are familiar with at least one programming language. And because bash is already there in Unix, you're not learning anything new. That's the reason we say it's easy. If I'm asking you to do something that you already know with slight modifications, you say, yeah, that's easy. But if I ask you to learn something completely new, like PowerShell, the syntax is completely different. You say, no, I don't want to learn something. So automation is difficult versus easy because Unix automation follows most of the programming languages. And especially for you guys, I would say, you can learn the entire bash programming in a single workshop on a Saturday, Sunday. Really, it's possible. We will try it if you are interested, probably at a later point of time. So here, automation using bash here in Unix and using PowerShell in Windows. So let's summarize the 3 points and we will wrap it up for today. So here, Windows versus Unix. The first point, single user versus multi-user. What's the other name for this one? If you want to use a fancy word for this one, console-based versus terminal-based. These are the fancy words. Means if you don't want the other person to understand it, or if you are in interview, I recommend you use this thing. Now the interviewers probably will not understand what you are saying. Then you go ahead and explain these two things for the next 2-3 minutes. You score about 5 to 10 points initially. See, all interview is all about scoring good marks at the beginning. First 10 minutes, the interviewer likes you, you have your offer letter in your hands. It's all about two people talking to each other. If I like you in the first 5 minutes, you're through. Now, for them to like us, we have to give something that they like. So you give some fancy words, then go ahead and explain those things. Interview is all about, two people talking to each other, like in a ring. So you tell something nice to that person, then you two discuss what that thing is. That person is okay, yeah, this guy can at least talk. You're good with it. But it's all about communication. It's not technology. Technology, you can learn anything in 3 months. You can learn the whole AWS in 3 months, Linux in 15 days, Devops in 1 month, or all Java in 6 months. Anything you can learn. What you need to demonstrate is You have to show that I can learn. That's what an interviewer looks at in your profile. So here, when you talk about Windows or Unix, these kind of things, when you say, okay, I worked on Unix or I worked on Linux, the first question, general question, okay, what's the difference? What do you think is the difference between Windows and Unix? You start using with a fancy word, console versus terminal. Good, the next 5 to 10 minutes are yours. We've been talking about it for the last 2 days, 2 hours. Out of those 2 hours, you can at least condense 5 minutes, right? That's all you have to do. That's the trick in your interviews. Interview is all about drama, like a movie. We know the story of a movie, right? Always. It's hero, heroine, villain. Same story. It never changed. It always same. But we keep watching the same movies every week. Every Friday, we have to watch a movie. You take Bahubali, KGF, all these movies are same. Kantara. Everything same, right? But the way they present it, what makes it watchable, good one, drama. So when you say Unix versus Windows or Windows versus Unix, use some fancy words. Console, terminal, multi-user, single use, bash scripting, PowerShell. Interviewer has to stop and stop. Enough. That's enough. That's enough. Stop. You know Windows versus Unix. I know that you know it. So let's move on to Java. No more Windows versus Unix question. It's all how you present. All right. So that's your first difference, Windows versus Unix. The second one is GUI and CLI, both available on both, but GUI is Windows is majorly GUI, majorly we are talking. Unix is majorly CLI. Both are available, but how we use it. Then the one that we are talking about, the most useful one, automation. How do we automate in Windows? PowerShell. And how do we automate in Unix? Bash. There are a couple of other things like shell also, it's called corn shell. We will talk about all these shells, but for now, let's stick to bash. These are the 3 things that we talked about so far. There are a couple of other things. We will talk about those things in our next session. Right now, let's look at any questions you might have. Any question? Did you understand what is automation? The first thing about automation is it should be manual, first of all. There is no automation if there is no manual thing. And the manual thing has to be repeated. If you are doing that manual thing in 10 different steps and those steps are not repeating, then you can't automate. And why do we automate it? 3 reasons. To save the time, to save the boredom, and to save the human errors. The humans are really, creative. Your mind is extremely active. You can't do anything boring for more than 1 to 2 hours. Even watching a movie, you can't do more than 2 hours. That's the reason we invented machines in the first place. Right? First, we started using all the buffaloes and everything, barrel. Then we started using machines. So the whole automation is to save effort for humans, one thing, and to avoid human errors. We can't do anything repetitive without making mistakes. So the 3 things about automation, I'll write it down here. So let's go back here, write down. Save time. avoid boredom, avoid human errors. These are the three things why we go for automation. Out. Okay, that's disappeared somehow. So those are the key points about Windows versus Unix and majorly automation. All right. So that will be all for today. If you have no questions, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Yeah. They asked me to finish it in 3 months. So if you guys are okay, we can finish it in 3 months. If you think that we can go a little slow, we can go a little slow. Whatever you like, we will go that. What do you think? 3 months is too long or too short? Yes, isn't it? I said the same thing to the Nagur. He says, let's go a little slow so that you all understand. So our priority is that you understand it. Isn't it? If we don't understand, there's no point in finishing, saving the time if you don't understand. You have to really understand. These are the three technologies that can get you a job. With 50% of Java, if you are 50% okay with these three technologies, you'll get a job. They add more value than actually, the advanced Java part. You learn up to front-end Java, your HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and Angular or React. One of these two. Little bit of Spring Boot, little bit. That's it. All right. Then these three, you have a job. That's how the market is. It's too hot. Market is too hot. You have to be able to talk. Like I said, automation, blah, blah, blah. Moving. Everything is moving. It's all moved. Kandara. That's what people like. Technology is really boring. You can learn technology. We will all learn technology in 2 to 3 months. I can sit with you on full day. We have some training sessions we go on tech camp. We sit for the whole day. Done. This entire Linux Unix thing, we finish it in 2 days. Right out. Done. There is nothing. Extremely boring things. And you have Google always when you are programming. So you can always go back, look at the Google, and then finish the work. All of you have the capacity to do software engineering job. What you don't have is, you don't know is what to focus on to get through the interview. Because when you go join a job, they expect that during the first 6 months of your job, you should be able to do these things. And like be able to look at the code, make fixes to the minor issues, or look at the basic HTML code or CSS code, Spring Boot code, try to fix those things. That's all they're expecting. And during these 6 months, if you know a little bit of this DevOps, because all your code has to go to DevOps every day, it goes to production, or every day it gets tested. So you like the three things we have seen. You develop in your Eclipse, push it to the Tomcat server. That's everything. Every day you're doing the same. That's where your DevOps little bit comes into it. So if you know that, they are more than happy to take you. So these three things can actually get you really the job really fast. So it's important that you understand. So 3 months, 3.5 months, whatever you prefer, we'll go at that pace. But the mandate I got from Nagur sir and Durga sir is make sure our students understand. So that's the priority. But otherwise, we can change our speed as you like it. How is the current speed? Is it going too fast or too slow? I told only 3 points in 3 sessions. That's really extremely slow. I was expecting some of you will at least complain. Is this space okay? So if you want me to go a little faster, tell me, I'll go faster. And if you want me to go a little slow. Initially, it will be a little slow until you get used to my pace and my language. You have to get used to my language also, because this is a general language that we use in an office. So you need to get used to it, because when you go to interview, somebody like me is asking the questions. If you don't understand the language, you can't answer. But is it something that it has to do with English? No, it's not English. It's regular English that I'm talking. But the way I'm talking is slightly different. You get used to this thing, you will perform better in your interview. And you have 3 months to get used to my language. So we'll go a little slow initially, then we will change it as per your requirement or your convenience. And I want to make sure you understand everything. Right? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Windows, we have actually certain ways to do it.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah, Windows, you have WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, that's one way. Or there is a virtual machine model, Oracle VirtualBox, you can install one of these two ways. If you are trying to do it on Windows. Or if you want to do something on Linux directly, we have this method, like the one that we are seeing. The machine is somewhere else. We just install MobiXCom and we connect it. Those machines, I'll tell you how to get them free on cloud. You have all this AWS cloud, Oracle cloud, every cloud, right? Some of those clouds are giving free machines. So we will set a machine over there and you connect to that machine always. That's one way. Or if you want to install on your local laptop itself, there are methods to do it. We will do that also. You want to do practicals, I can. What I'm thinking is, I'll give you the tasks. The same task, I'll show it here, how to do it. Then I'll give you a website where you can go and execute those tasks free of cost. So you just have to create an account, and whatever I have shown, you can go there, execute the same task. So that will become your hands-on. So I'm going to give you the task for something. I will execute the task and show it to you here, so that you understand, okay, this is how it's done. Then the same thing you will execute on a similar machine. You will also understand, okay, this is what Anil was executing. So this is what he was doing. So once you understand that, I will also give you some exercises which I won't show you. That will be more like, your test. If you don't know answers to those things, you can come back to me, ask me, I'll show it and execute it and show it. Your most regular way of learning we will adopt. How do we learn anything? First, the teacher will tell you the concept. Then the teacher will show you how to do something. Then you will go there and do the same. Then the teacher will go give you some other tasks where solutions are not available. You try to solve that problem. Either you get it or you don't get it. If you don't get it, you come back to the teacher, ask how to do it. The teacher gives you solution. Same problem. We'll adopt the same model that you are already familiar. This one, this video. Video is in this material, video is there. The material that I am preparing, I will add some of these things to the material, because if I make the material completely different, you will not be able to correlate. Whatever you are listening and seeing, part of it will become part of the material. And the material will have some more, detailed steps or detailed points that we are discussing. Key points. That will be slightly different with part of the things that we are discussing here placed into the material basis. But one request is the material is getting developed as we talk. Material will be delayed 2-3 days after our class. But I'm uploading the PDF every day. I'm updating it and it will give it. After a week or 10 days, and once the process is streamlined, you will have much faster. So I'll prepare the material in 4 steps. Right now, I'm still trying to understand you guys. What's your pace? What's your knowledge? How fast you want to learn? How slow you want to? Once I understand your pace, I'll improve the process and we'll go a little fast. First, we will go with Linux because for AWS you want to make Linux, but DevOps also will be Linux. So without Linux, learning AWS and DevOps will be easy. We can't really do anything in those two. The Linux is basic everywhere. Everything simple on your So man mail last we learned the number integrate this. Even we allow this